Well, the inspector just left. He said I'm good to go until final inspection. Well, we got the house all cleaned out here for the sheetrock delivery, drywall delivery. A couple things I forgot when we was talking the other day. I did put me a 1-inch conduit down into the crawl space for any kind of future electrical needs we might have, since we've got these extra spaces up here. And then if you get down into the crawl space and you want to go to the attic, I put a 2-inch conduit sleeve from the crawl space to the attic. I put one of those in my house, and goes through 2 stories, and I wound up using it for a coax to go to an antenna up in the attic for the local stations that came about when digital TV come along, and it works great. So I'm glad I had it there. What I'm getting ready to do now, I've put down some of this black plastic like we used in the crawl space underneath both the shower and the bathtub. And these are pretty sturdy. They've got, you know, plywood laminated up to them and whatnot, but they tend to start flexing over time. And so what I've usually like to do is put like a dry mix of sand and cement, not dry, but you know, like a mud bed, like you'd use under tile, up under them. And once that sets up, that makes the floor of the shower or the tub feel good and strong and sturdy, and probably, you know, may prevent cracking down the road. So we'll get started mixing that up. And I'm just going to push it between the floor and the tub. You don't have to have 100%. In this case, I got a drain that I haven't put in yet on the shower, so I'll have to try to stay away from it. And then after I get through packing the cement and sand underneath it, I'll go underneath and cut that plastic open and make sure my drain hole doesn't have anything in it. The tub, I won't have that problem because I won't be coming back this far. It's right here. So just kind of got that under there to keep that wet cement and sand off of the subfloor for now. Got this hot ball in my mouth. Okay, what I'm doing here, I'm putting just regular mason sand like you would use on laying block that's left over from laying block, and some Portland cement, which is also left over, and getting a little bit lumpy. And I put 5 shovelfuls of the sand, 1 shovelful of the cement, and I'm just going to mix it up good before I start adding any water to it. When we get done with it, it's going to look about like it does now. We want it to be pretty tight. So we'll just get this all stirred up. Remember this guy? He was in like episode 2 or 3 when we was pulling down the ceilings of the old house. I think that's about it right there. Close anyway. It might slake down and get a little too tight, but it's cold out here, I doubt it. What you want to be able to make a snowball out of it, but you want something that'll fall apart if you touch it. The first time I ever seen any of this made wasn't too long ago. I think 1985. I was building swimming pools, and we were working on a job up in Blacksburg, Virginia, and they did it was an indoor pool and did a tile deck all the way around it. And the guys that were doing the tile were actually mixing this dry mix up on plywood laying on the ground, and they were using a rototiller. That's how dry it is. They would just throw the mix down on the plywood, stir it up, shovel it in buckets or whatever they had, and take it in and pour it down on the deck. Now you can see it packs real hard, but it's still got enough wetness to hold it together. But you could actually form it almost straight up and down here if you wanted to. This is actually maybe a little too wet, but I think it's going to work fine for this application. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the bucket, take it inside, and start packing it up under the tub. About 15 more buckets and we'll have it. Okay guys, that LED lights are flickering a little bit, but it's hard to see without it too. So we got the concrete packed in under the tub and shower here. And I got to do one more thing over here for this closet door. When I roughed in this opening for the closet door, I planned on using 2 3/0 doors just hinged on the side like French doors that open out. But Mom and Sister's been watching HGTV and they've decided they'd like to have the sliding barn doors on the closets. Thanks, Chip and Joanna. So what I've got to do is I'm going to add about a 10-inch piece of plate down here on the bottom. I'm going to cut a couple of stubs here, and I'm going to basically bring that door opening or make this rough opening 10 inches shorter, 10 inches less wide, and that'll allow you to use 2 3/0 doors, and they'll still overlap each other in the wall. And also in the future, if you decided you wanted to put the conventional doors back on here, all you have to do is cut out this side over here and put your regular doors in. So I'm going to get this put in and then I'm going to call it a night. Okay guys, here it's early morning. Got just a little bit of snow last night, but I ran by here. The sheetrock people or drywall people are supposed to deliver here in a little bit, so I came on over to meet them and let them in. But I'm going to I made a little piece of 6-inch pipe this morning. I'm going to put it around this B vent up above the ceiling level where the blown-in insulation is going to go, and that's just to keep that insulation off of that pipe. I don't think it would ever get near warm enough to bother anything, but better safe than sorry. So I'm going to snap it on down here and show you what I'm going to do up there, because it's going to be hard to film once I'm up in the attic. Okay, so I've just snapped it around the B vent. Now what I'll do, I'll take it up there in the attic and do the same thing, and then once I get it snapped on, I'll bend these tabs over, top and bottom, and that'll kind of keep it spaced away, and that way any of the insulation they blow in will be touching this pipe instead of this pipe. So just a little extra protection. Here's a quick shot of the top of that thing where I bent the tabs down to keep it spaced away from the pipe. Same thing at the bottom. I bent 2 out, thinking if I needed to, I could stick a couple of zip ends into that fire stop, but I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So it's better than it could have been.
Nice warm in there.
Yeah, I tried to warm it up a little bit for you, at least a little bit of a break.
Try not to let too much cold in there.
Oh, don't worry about that. I just turned it on to you guys. I'm not going to stay once you get it done. Well, it's a cold Saturday morning. The gutter people just showed up, so they're gonna get started putting some guttering on the house. I'll try to get a little bit of video. It's not gonna take them long to finish either. That stuff goes quick. And just like that, they're finished and leaving. Hey guys, it's 6:30 in the morning. It just started pouring the snow outside. Just got here and turned the heat on. The sheetrock man, which has been battling COVID, just called and said the hangers would be here this morning early. I don't know if the snow will show up. Like I said, it just started coming down. So what I've got to do is I've got to clean out the stuff that I had in here while I was putting those porch posts up on the outside while the gutter guys was working. And I've got to take the thermostat off the wall, and I'm going to go ahead and put water on the freshwater plumbing. I had air on it, but I'm going to go ahead and fill it up with water since they're coming to hang. They'll hang the whole place today, and I'd like to make sure there's no leaks behind those bathtubs before I cover that up. So I'm going to get the hose drug next door and start getting some water on this plumbing. Well, I had to hook it up in here. I didn't think about those hose bibs having backflow preventers on them, so as soon as I tried to turn it on, it started leaking really bad. So I realized what I had done wrong. So I put it on the washing machine, and I wasn't sure. I'd let all the air off these lines after the inspector left, but I left the ice maker open, and by the time I turned it on over there and got turned around, it was already squirting out over here. So I made a little mess. I grabbed me a vacuum cleaner to keep it out of the duct there. But I think I figured out why Missy can't keep a water hose. Her hose bib comes off before the regulator. I come down here and this gauge was pegged out. I had to let some off. I'd already let the air off upstairs through the hot side of the washer, but I had to let a little out down here in order to get the gauge off the peg. So she's got a lot of pressure over there on that water hose. I'm going to leave that on there, and I'm gonna go ahead and unhook the hose and get it picked up before it freezes. But start getting this stuff cleared out of the house so that they can get in here and work. Hopefully they show up now. Otherwise I'll be heating this place with no ceiling in it. The snow keeps a-falling. The finisher just came by and dropped off some, looks like some glue and some screws for the hangers. I'm going to get this thermostat off the wall. I just turned it off. I'm gonna let it cool down. And I got all my junk out of the middle of the floor. What I'm going to do is get that thermostat off. I'm gonna just hot wire it where I can turn it back on, tape it up, and then go ahead and take that doorbell out just so they can route around that with no trouble. Well, those two boys just left to go get a late lunch. They've worked faster than their batteries could charge. I went out and got them a couple off my truck, but they've got a lot of it hung already, so they'll finish tonight. I'd say they'll work until they do get finished anyway. They were going to do, it looked like they were going to try to do these rooms and work their way out into the big area, but they had all this material in here, and it guess made sense to just go ahead and move back out here and start dragging it out to them. So won't be much longer. Well, it's about 7 at night and it's still snowing. They ran a few sheets short of drywall, so I just let them follow me to Lowe's, and we bought a few sheets and threw them up in the back of their truck, and we're trying to get them back to the house before they get too wet in this kind of it's a dry snow, but it melts really fast when it hits the warm surface, so that top sheet's going to be pretty wet. I bought an extra one just in case. Well, about 12 and a half, 13 hours later, they just left. I'm going to leave the heat probably on 55. I should pick all this stuff up tonight and put it in a trailer, but I think I'm going to go on home and maybe call the pizza place on the way and pick up some pizza. Well, the finishers just left. They had their radio on really loud the whole time, so I didn't do any filming on that, but they've got the first coat on everything. They wanted it 65, so I warmed it up to 65. And when they got here, they wasn't here but a few minutes up on those stilts, and they had it turned down to 59. So there's our little towel niche. But they got a good first coat on it here. They have a, this is a Thursday. They have a large house they got to sand tomorrow. So they're going to go there tomorrow, and then they're going to come back Saturday morning, do the second coat, and then they'll probably come back on Monday for the final coat. And I don't know, I assume they'll sand it the next day or wait until it's set up good, but I can have it any temperature we want here now because the insulation guys came. You can see where they got a little mud on the ceiling there trying to crawl up in the hole. Maybe on the wall down here too, but anyway, we got our blown in insulation overhead. They didn't do the insulation down here in the floor. The guy that came to do this said he was down in his back and he couldn't do crawl spaces, so they're gonna have to send someone else out for that. Well, the finishers just left again. They've been here a couple of different times. They'll come in and, well, you can probably see the difference in the color right here. As they put it on, they'll work from a spot, and then they'll stop so they won't, you know, get into themselves again. And then the next time they come, they'll go back into the areas they haven't done yet. So I guess that cuts down on the amount of sanding they'll have to do at the end. But they're knocking it out. They got several jobs going, so what they'll do, they'll come in here in the morning and hit this one, and then they can go to the next job and hit it. Tomorrow they won't be here at all. They've got a house to tape, and that takes a lot longer, of course, so they'll be there all day tomorrow. So they'll roll back in here the next day, and that should be their last coat, and then they'll let it dry and come in and sand everything at one time. So what I'm going to do, I've got some time this afternoon. It's a beautiful day. It started out in pretty close to the teens this morning temperature wise, and now it's up in the 40s. But I'm going to come in here and start putting some trim boards on the inside of these windows because it's not going to affect them any. What I have to do first though is cut this foam out of my way, and I'm going to even take this tie back out. So I'll start cutting that out of the way, and then I've bought some I think it's finger jointed pine 1x6, so it's 5.5 inches wide, and it's been primed already on all four sides, so that's nice. So what I'm going to do with it is rip it in half, so it'll basically be right at 2 3/4 inches wide, which is what I need. And I think I'll turn the primed edge toward the window, which will leave the unprimed edge turned out this way. So when we prime our walls, we can just prime that with it. And that way all four sides of that stuff will have primer on it. And I'll get started. I gotta cut some of this stuff out. I'll get started on that, and then I'll show you the boards, and we'll rip them up and get started on it. Okay, the next thing I'll do is, instead of ripping this thing in the full 8-foot length through the table saw, it's a lot easier to handle if it's shorter for one person. I'll cut the actual bottom and the top of the window out, which is about 3 foot long. I'll go ahead and cut that piece, and then I can have 2 shorter pieces to rip. So we'll take this over to the table saw, which is conveniently sitting right here. like I say, this edge has been cut, so it's not got any primer on it, so I'll just turn it out toward the room, and then when we paint the primer on the walls, we can catch this too. May want to take a sanding sponge and just hit this edge all the way around. That'll be the only exposed edge. This will be back against the window, and the face trim that goes around the window will come out to within 1/4 inch of this. So this would be the only edge that'll be seen. So then the next thing I do, I'm just dry fitting it in here. Now probably the right way to do this sort of stuff would be to measure each window, put these things on a table, maybe use a clamp and glue it and screw through the back sides to make a frame that'll never move at this joint. But in this kind of situation where it's going to be painted anyway, I think putting them in here, fitting them good and snug, we're going to caulk that joint anyway before it gets painted. The worst case scenario is you'll get a little crack here someday way in the future when the house dries out a whole lot, and you'll have to caulk and paint again. But I can guarantee you that's not going to be the only cosmetic crack in a new house. So it's a lot easier. I kept the window centered nice in the rough opening because I knew what I was going to be doing here. So we just fit that in there. And again, the only part we'll see of this is this edge and 1/4 inch of this front, because the trim will lap over top of that. So I'm going to, I got a little iron nailer that I've had since, I think my dad got it for me for Christmas back around the turn of the century, so about 21 years ago. It's a Craftsman. Back when Craftsman was Sears, so it's an oldie, but it seems to still work all right. Need to set the air up just a little bit, or I'm going to have to beat a bunch of nails down, but I'll just tack this a couple places. But that's basically what I'm going to do, times, I don't know, 7 or 8. So I'll get started on it. Okay, we're going to get started by taking these Swiffers and knocking the dust off. Now, everything I know about painting, I learned in about 30 minutes on YouTube last night, so you probably don't want to try any of this on your job, because it's probably not going to turn out too good. But let's give it a try. We went outside and beat them together to knock the dust off. Brought back memories of first grade when you'd get to vie for getting to be the one to take the chalkboard erasers out and beat them on the old oak tree every evening. They're pretty dusty, so we're going to go ahead and put on 2 new ones for the walls in this room. Our plan is to try to get this room at least primed out and hopefully the ceiling put on it. And then I'd have a place to store the 16-foot long trim when it's delivered the first of the week, and give us a place to set up in here and paint it all on sawhorses instead of having to take it outside or something. Got this PVA primer because that's what everybody says you need for new drywall. It's apparently thin and soaks in good to the paper and seals it up good. And I considered getting buying a sprayer. Since we got so much here to spray out, it'd be a lot easier. But apparently, because this finish is less porous and smooth, where they've sanded it, and this paper is more porous and kind of a little raised or stippled. Even if you spray it, you're supposed to back roll it afterwards, so you end up getting a texture instead of seeing a different sheen right here versus up here. So based on that and the mess that the sprayer makes and you know, cleaning it out and everything, I decided we'll just probably try to go ahead and just roll it all, and that way we kind of kill two birds with one stone and save that $300 that a sprayer costs. But if I could have just sprayed it and that's all, I would have definitely bought the sprayer, because I hate the paint. They shook it up good for us a few minutes ago when we bought it, so I don't think I need to shake it any. These rollers are pretty fuzzy when you buy them new. I'm going to run out to the truck and get some sticky duct tape and just kind of pick the lint off of them. This is a 1/2 inch nap. I'll use 3/8 on the final coat, but everybody seems to recommend, a lot of people recommend a 3/4 inch nap for your first primer coat, but that seems a little extreme for a smooth ceiling. So we got a lot of the fuzz off. Just wet it down a little bit so that that thing should be prepared and ready for paint now. I'm gonna get Missy a little bit in a bucket and let her start cutting in along the corner of the wall and the ceiling, and then I'll come right behind her and start painting out the ceiling. Missy over here taking my job. You can see how it's drying slower where the joint compound is. See that stripe? And where the wallboard is, it just kind of soaked right in. So it's getting whiter and whiter as the thing dries out. So we're going to call it a night and go look for some pizza. We had to put the thermostat back on. It was getting, the windows was fogging up all the moisture out of the paint. So we warmed it up a couple more degrees and thawed the windows out, or took the moisture off of them. So I'll come back tomorrow and try to get the rest of it primed. Well, it's the next afternoon. I didn't move too fast this morning. I had a lot of muscles that were sore that I didn't even know I had from rolling that ceiling. But it dried out pretty good. I mean, it looks a little blotchy going on, especially as it soaks in, you know, a different rate into the drywall versus the wall compound. But I think it did a really good job covering. What I did, I went by Lowe's and bought 5 gallon of ceiling paint. So what I think I'll just do today is try to go ahead and brush or roll this ceiling out with its actual paint coat instead of primer, and get it done so that I'll have a place to put the trim when I get it next week. So I'm going to get started on that. My batteries aren't doing too good. Those Amazon batteries, got 2 of them with a charger, and one of them says it's charged all the time, but it won't turn the phone on, and the other one lasts just a few minutes. So that's the brand. I wouldn't recommend it unless I just got a bad batch, but it's hard to keep the camera running very long. Okay, got the ceiling, a coat of paint on the ceiling. That's actual real paint. You can kind of tell, I guess it might show up on camera, the primer kind of looks purpley or gray or darker, kind of a blue tint to it now versus the ceiling. This is what I used. Went ahead and paid double to get the HGTV paint, because we all know that makes a house beautiful. Actually, bought the HGTV because that particular brand, paint that they had at Lowe's, because it has a mold and mildew resistant stuff in it that allows you to use it in bathrooms. That way I can buy this 5 gallons and do the entire house, bathrooms and all. I did want to go ahead and pick up this $2 funnel, which made life a lot easier. I hadn't painted in so long. Last time I painted, the 5 gallon jugs came with that pull-out funnel on it. Of course, yesterday when I got here, I didn't have one. When I tried to pull it out, this little plug came out. So picked up one of those for, like I say, it's probably worth the $2. Made it a lot easier. Of course, I'm gonna have to take the top off next time. I had them shape this at Lowe's and brought it straight over here and used it, but next time I'll have to mix it up before I can use that to pour it out. So it's Sunday. Oh, happy Valentine's Day. So since we got a little bit of time before dark or whatever, I may go ahead and do a little electrical. I bought some outlets and switches and odds and ends. And right now, when you come in the door, of course, all the switches are just wired on, and the way you turn all the lights on is come in here in the panel and start flipping breakers, but that's not really, especially with the lid off. I need to put that back on. But at any rate, we can put a few switches in now, put a little piece of blue tape over them when we get ready to paint again. It may be a while before we paint the walls. We got to pick out the floor first. But we can get, there's a few places like the refrigerator only has this outlet on one breaker, so that would give you an outlet to plug something in. Might want a radio or something to listen to. The other thing I may go ahead and do is swing by, I think Home Depot's got the ones I want. They make a LED insert that goes into can lights, and they have one that's you can change the color on. You can run it from like 27K up to about 5,000 or 6,000 K. So you can go from a warm, you know, yellow to a, you know, bright blue color. So I may go ahead and get, I think there's 14 of those in the areas where we have the ceilings painted. So if we go ahead and get those and put them in, it'll make it a lot brighter in here when we get ready to start painting on the walls or putting down the floor or putting in cabinets, whatever. So hopefully next time you see us, we'll have a little more light. Well, there's our lights. I did get those lights, those 14 we talked about, put them in to make it a little brighter in here. Like I said, it's probably a Home Depot store brand. They have them in packs of 4 for $34, but they sold them all the day before I went over, and they had these 2-packs, so I bought 7 boxes of 2, and it lights it up pretty well. I wound up setting it on the middle setting, which is about 4000 K, and we think that light looks the best. Of course, you can pull them down and change them at any time. You just have to pull them down out of the ceiling a little bit. They're spring loaded up in there, and then you can just move the, it's got a switch on the back that has about 5 positions. So went ahead and got this front bedroom primed, bathroom's primed, this little closet's primed, and I think the utility room is the only other thing that's primed. It's been hard. We've had the cold snap here. It's hard to come in here and do anything very long when you're getting calls with no heat all the time. So it's a Friday. I think what I'm going to do is see if I've got enough video to piece something together so I can get one out. I know it's been a while. I've been getting some messages, you know, is everything okay? It's okay. It's just slow going. I had to wait an extra time for the sheetrock guy because he wound up with COVID and had to quarantine, but all in all, it's coming together. Oh, and I wanted to, one thing you'll need to do, I didn't have a light in this hallway, but painted these walls and rubbed our hands over them and did a little sanding and everything. And when instant I turned that light on, I could see this groove right here that we didn't know was there. So I'll take a little of the sheetrock compound. I think they left me a little bit here, and I'll smear it on, let it dry, and probably just wet sponge it off, and it'll take care of it. But light makes a lot of difference. You can hold a light up beside of a wall like this and see every little imperfection. You probably don't want to look too close. You'll end up spending all your time working on sheetrock, but you want to find the big stuff for sure. So again, this is just primer. We do have a paint color picked out now finally. We found a floor that we want to use. Again, I want to use the same floor through the whole house and try not to have any thresholds. So we're going to go with this vinyl top plank, rigid plank flooring, and it's going to be too hard to get one out. We'll let that be a surprise anyway, but the color is going to be this particular color of off-white. There's about 17 million colors of white and off-white, but this one goes well with the flooring, and you can see it's just a little bit darker than the primer. Got a little different tone. That looks more blue, and this, depending on what it's beside, has a little more gray in it. Cabinets are ordered. Got kitchen cabinets and bathroom vanities ordered. Was going to use the same cabinets in the laundry room as the kitchen cabinets, but it's just probably way too much money to spend for a laundry room. So I think what we're going to do is go with some of the unfinished stock cabinets that the big box stores keep, and just paint them, you know, gloss white, or maybe even pickle them. I don't know. We'll do something with them, but I think for a laundry room that'll be fine. And every $1,000 you save is $1,000 earned, right? So I'll probably come in the morning. Like I say, it's Friday afternoon. I had time I could paint tonight, but I'm just tired. It's been cold all day, and I'm ready just to go home and eat some pizza. So I'll come in here tomorrow and try to get these last 2 rooms primed. And I need to probably go pick up that flooring before they sell it to somebody else. It's like 73 boxes of it. So I'll get that all delivered in here and in place where we can put it down. To my knowledge, it's best not to have the baseboard on when you do that flooring, because you have to shim it out off the wall in order to get it all together and leave it some room for expansion. And if you got the baseboard there and you try to shim against the baseboard, then all you have is a little quarter round trim to cover the gap. I might even do the same thing with the kitchen cabinets. I know where they go and I know about how big they are, but I might lay the flooring over where it would be inside the line of the cabinets. And then when I get the cabinets, I could set them in place, mark the floor, and trim it back with either a saw or an oscillating tool. And that way you can get it nice and tight to the cabinet, you know, leave your little gap there, but close enough that you can cover it with your trim without any trouble. It'll be a lot easier to put down the floor without the cabinets, because you get that snap together stuff, trying to get it tilted up under the toe kick and snap down, it might get a little tough. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Go ahead and try to get the painting, one coat of paint, or the coat of paint on the walls, and then try to clean up everything and put the flooring down. And cabinets are going to take a couple of weeks to get here, so I should have plenty of time to get that done, we hope. So if we got enough video, I'll put one up tonight. And thanks for watching.